Louis Mastro Marino, and I was born in Elkhart on Hickory Street, the first house on Hickory Street, which is now Martin Luther King Drive. And it was in June 25th, 1922. Well, that all started December of 1942 is when I got drafted and went to Camp Wheeler, which was an infantry training camp. And after that, I volunteered for the Paratroopers and went to Fort Benning. And on the fifth jump, they was waiting for me. You had to make 5 jumps to qualify. It says we're going overseas after the 5th jump. And we loaded up and went to Camp Shanks, New York, and got on a boat to George Washington. It was a converted luxury liner, and the British were sailors on it. And we went to Casablanca, and we was there at Casablanca for a couple of weeks, and then we got on, they put us on 40 and 8s, and that was the 82nd Airborne Division, and a railroad, they called it 40 and 8 narrow gauge railroad, and we went to a place called Bulge, and we stayed there for, till we made the jump at Sicily on July the 8th, and our Navy shot down 23 of our planes. They didn't put that much of that in the papers about the big goof up they made there, but that's then after the invasion of Sicily, we went back to Africa and then back to Sicily again, and then we jumped at Salerno. That was our next jump, and we went from Salerno into Naples, and then we went to we were there for a while, and then they split us up, and they sent half of our division to England, and the other half stayed in Italy. And I was with the 504, and we stayed in Italy and made the Anzio, invasion of Anzio by boat. We went in there and stayed there until April of, 1944. And then they took us out and get ready for the invasion of France, D-Day, and but they held us in reserve, and they did take volunteers. But then we made another. Then we, after that, we made the jump in Holland, and stayed there for till November of '44. Then they took us back to a place called Soissons, France, and we thought, boy, we're going to get a nice rest. And then the Germans made the breakthrough, the Battle of the Bulge, so we had to go there. Well, I was a rifleman and a machine gun operator, and that was the 2 main weapons that I used. Ones that actually was eyeball to eyeball with the enemy was the ones that got the Bronze Star. This one place there in Italy, that when we left Salerno, we went on LCI, it's a beautiful boat, and we'd been at combat there at Salerno. That was really rough. It was a bloody affair. And, you know, we couldn't take a bath or anything, but when we got on that LCI to move up the coast on that, just that ride on that boat, and it would go down into the water, you know, and you get the spray from the, I sat right in the front end of that boat. I just laid on there, and I'd catch that water, and you know, we hadn't had a bath for I don't know how long. It just felt wonderful. And then when we got to the place we got off at, we had to walk up practically straight up to get up to where we was going, and it was nighttime by the time we got up the top of the level ground there in Italy, and they says dig in, and we dug a foxhole and dug in. When I woke up in the morning, it was still dark out, and I looked up, it was grapes, beautiful, just beautiful grapes, and us guys just, you know, devoured them grapes. And I went up, and I was lucky enough I could talk enough Italian. The guy that owned the place, he says, "You guys ruined me, ate all my grapes." I told him, I said, "Well, geez, you must have saved a lot of them, because there was a great big barrel and it was full of these grapes, and these young girls were in there barefooted, stomping them." You know, he was getting what he could get, and had them girls all in there squeezing them them grapes, getting that juice. And that was one thing. And then when we left there, we went to a place, it was raining. It was really raining hard. And the first sergeant came down to him, and he says, "This guy says there's a German patrol around here." And the guy came over, and he talked in Italian to me, and he's the patron. He owns the house. Here this sergeant thought this guy thought it was a German patrol, and here it was. It was just that he was trying to explain that he was the owner of the property there. And about in that same period right there, we had to take turns to be on guard when we would finally dig in. And this one kid, he says, "I'm going to go in that barn over there, and when you want me for, to stand guard, that's where he was going to be." And then this other kid said he's just going to dig a foxhole. And I saw this little building about the size of this room, and it was a church. So I thought, well, hell, I'm going to go in there. It's nice and dry. If it rains like it did last night. So I went in and I laid on the altar of the church, of inside the church, and I stayed in there for until it was my turn to stand guard. And I often thought, well, if they're going to shoot me, I'm going to be right here in church, right here on top of the altar. I laid right there in that little church. Yeah. And then from there, I kept seeing these big mountains. We were at night, we was walking up these, they were all hilly ground, and huge fire, and it was Mount Vesuvius. It was shooting fire flames up. It had, it wasn't a bad explosion, but it threw a lot of ashes all around up in that area at that time. I think that's about the last time that thing really went. Mount Etna, the one in Sicily, I guess that blew up several years ago a little bit, but I don't think Vesuvius has been pretty quiet. But it's about time for that to start breaking loose again. But that was then when we went into Naples, the guy says, you got to carry this roll of wire up over the mountain and down into over the hill, communication wire that they use. And I thought, Sergeant sold a lot of that crap onto me. But anyway, I took that roll of wire and carried it up all across that mountain and got it across. And then I finally did get it over there. Well, the guy, I asked the guy, I says, where are you going to do it? He said, you just leave it lay there. We didn't need it because the Germans pulled out. And then we went and walked into Naples, was right on Via Roma there. And I was the only guy. They put me on point. I went on point. And there wasn't a soul. The Germans had pulled out, and the people moved out too. And you can imagine walking down a city of 1 million, you're the only guy walking down, right, that boulevard, that Roman boulevard there. And that was a weird feeling, I thought there's got to be a bunch of Germans in those buildings there ready to open fire any second. Had that feeling, you was gonna. But the Germans had pulled out of Naples. They weren't. But they set the coal mines on fire, and the building that 307 engineers. They moved into that building and it blew up and it killed a bunch of them 307 engineers that was in the building. I had to go over there and help try to dig them guys out too. That was a mess. But the building that they put us in had been bombed real bad. So the Germans figured we wouldn't use that building. So it was a schoolhouse, the one our outfit, our company moved into. And lucky they didn't there wasn't a bomb in there, but they put one in the post office. They blew up the post office, and they were all on time bombs right there. They killed quite a few people there at the post office. I didn't have to go help clean that one up. But I knew I got the report back that mostly civilians got killed in that one up there at the post office. That probably the daylight jump in the other ones were night jumps. Two of them were night jumps, and the one was the day jump. Probably the one in Holland, because you went across the English Channel, and there was a gunboat down there, and I thought, boy, I hope that gunboat is allied, is friendly, but they put a hole in our wing. They shouldn't, 20 caliber, and we were lucky we didn't get shot down, but they did put a hole in our wing, and we kept moving in. And it was such a beautiful Sunday day, and the sun was shining and going. And you could see the landscape, all the land. And when we jumped, then thankfully the pilot dropped us about 12 miles from our drop zone, because when we got on the ground, we saw that there was an aircraft fire. Some of those planes that were up ahead of us were getting shot down. And I'm glad that pilot kicked us out a little early, even though it was about 12 miles from Nijmegen, and that was a town where we finally ended up. And we crossed the Nijmegen in canvas boats. The British found some canvas boats somewhere, and that was in a daytime. That was a daytime crossing there too, and the Germans. You could see the machine gun bullets like raindrops in the water all around you. wonder how it was missing. But I got across the river all right. We went in there, and this guy in front of me, he was a pretty good sized guy, and we got up where we had some cover. It was just as smooth as that river out there, the ground, when we got on the other side. And we didn't have any cover over there, so we went single file up to where we could get some little cover, and the guy next to me got shot right between the eyes. Bullet. Just as he was right next, standing right next to me. All the combat troops, infantry combat troops, and that was on the front lines in foot soldiers. Practically all of them got a Bronze Star. That's how you had to be either an infantry soldier or that saw combat. You had to be in combat to have got the Bronze Star.